Hey there, this is your pal Pally, and welcome back to Git Er Raid. I'm taking a look at PTR fights for the upcoming Siege of Orgrimmar, and we'll be putting up as many raid guides as possible. As always with PTR testing, bugs will be plentiful and tuning will be off, so keep that in mind. Next up is General Nazgrim. The fight is a 2-tank and probably 3-heal encounter on 10-man, and involves a single boss with a bunch of ad waves, kind of like Will of the Emperor from Tier 14. The main mechanic of the fight for the boss is rage. The more rage he generates, the deadlier the ability he uses that rage on. You can't prevent him from getting any rage, but the overall goal is to make sure he stays fairly low and uses some of the lower costing rage abilities like Shockwave and Banners. So let's talk first about how he can gain rage. And before even that, we have to talk about the 3 stances that the boss can be in. Battle Stance is the default stance, and it just basically gives him 1 rage per second. Berserker Stance increases his damage dealt and received, and gives him 2 rage per second. Finally, Defensive Stance reduces the damage taken and deflects attacks from the front. It also generates 5 rage when he does get hit by everyone in the raid except the tanks. There was apparently a bug such that the tank's attacks were also being reflected too, which wasn't supposed to be happening. So basically, it's safe to DPS him in Battle Stance, you want to burst him during Berserker Stance, and you want to avoid touching him much during Defensive Stance. The boss will also get rage when players in the raid get hit by some of his abilities. I'll note that when we talk about what he spends his rage on, but he will generate rage from applying Sundering Blow to the tanks. This is the tank swap mechanic, and it lasts a minute, so that's about how long to wait until swapping. Now we can talk about how he spends the rage that he gains from the raid. The simplest thing he can do is Heroic Shockwave. He basically leaps onto someone in the raid and cracks the ground. After a few seconds, the cracked ground will erupt and do additional damage to the raid. If you get caught in the damage from the cracks, you will give him more rage. So just move away from the impact point every time he uses this ability. Corcoran Banner is a simple ability that just puts a banner down. It causes him to generate 3 rage for every time one of his ads attack the raid. That can add up quickly, so you want to get the banner down as soon as possible. Ravager is an ability he uses when he has 70 rage. This one kinda gets annoying because it's a big ass blade that spins and takes up a good portion of an already smallish room. Anytime anyone gets hit by the blade, the boss gains 3 more rage. Just stay far away from the spinning blade and hope it doesn't screw your positioning too much. Lastly, if Nazgrim ever reaches 100 rage, he'll use War Song. This is probably a raid wipe mechanic given its current damage. It takes 75% of the raid's entire health as physical damage. Ouch. Probably want to avoid getting his rage all the way up here. Realize also that he can only spend his rage on something every 15 seconds, so as long as you aren't getting hit by a lot of things, his rage should stay fairly low. He'll leap a lot and occasionally throw down the banner. If you start getting Ravagers out there, you are probably not doing too well. But it's possible that some strategies might involve pushing a War Song to clear him out, and then get back to low rage generation. We'll see how that plays out in live. The last ability to note about the boss is called Bone Cracker. This is a debuff and bleed that he puts out to the raid. It drops your maximum health by 50% and applies a bleed. Healers will have to be careful with the people that have this one throughout the fight. Now to move on to the ads. Besides the pretty useless Orgrimmar Faithful Grunts that are present on the poll, there are 4 types of ads: Ironblades, Arcweavers, Assassins, and War Shaman. They seem to come out in pairs and in a set order. For example, we always saw an Arcweaver and Ironblade come out first. Then we saw an Assassin and War Shaman together, and etc., etc. I'm sure much of the strategy on live will revolve around prioritizing the kill order on the ads. So for now, I'll just go through what each of them do. The Ironblades likely need to be tanked as they only really do a physical whirlwind attack. It's probably not a good idea for melee to even touch these guys, as we're talking about 200k damage per second. They will also cast Last Stand when they get to 25% health, which just basically gives them more health to kill off. Nothing special, really. They are likely the lowest priority ads of all. Arc Weavers are the casters, and they are basically mini mages. Their spells can be interrupted, and they will also blink around some, so it makes it difficult to CC them in traps, as I failed to do so all night. The only thing to note about these ads is that if they keep being allowed to cast, they gain a buff, making them do 25% more damage each cast. This probably means you can't leave them alone for too long. Assassins are annoying until you learn how to deal with them. They start out in stealth, and the only indication that you've got one on you is that you'll have a set of eyes above your head. Make absolutely certain you are facing the assassin. If he is allowed to get behind you, you are basically dead. His frontal melee is pitifully weak, and he can't be tanked, so just keep him in front of you and this ad will be no problem at all. War Shaman are probably the highest priority of target. They can heal themselves, other ads, and the boss, so they need to be interrupted and taken care of quickly. They can put Earth Shield on ads or the boss, or use Chain Heal on them. Be absolutely certain that the boss is nowhere near the Healing Tide totem that he drops, as it can heal him for 30% of his health, which is ridiculous. So from the brief looks at this encounter, I'm guessing you'll always prioritize the Shaman, kill off the Arc Weavers next, then Assassins, and then leave the Iron Blades for last. Beyond that, you'll just need to pay attention to the boss and make sure to not DPS him during defensive stance, blow up his banners, avoid his shockwave, and avoid his Ravager Blade. And once again, I was in an entirely pug group, so it wasn't the most organized pulls, but I hope you've seen most of the mechanics that you'll have to deal with. Seems like you just prioritize the ads and don't stand in stuff. Thanks for watching, and please comment, like, and/or subscribe to the video if you found it helpful, and have a good one!